In our Bangalore studio is Jasmine Shah. He's a public policy expert, somebody who's worked very closely with the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi. Now, why is he in Bangalore? Why is he in our studio? Because he's just written this book. It's called The Delhi Model, a bold new roadmap to building a developed India. And, as we all know, the Delhi election is less than a month away. And we will be talking about what the Aam Aadmi Party has done in the last 10 years, what they could have done better, Hindutva, a whole bunch of questions. But before I go across to him, as I keep reminding, we can bring independent voices because we are independent. If you appreciate the kind of journalism that we do, then if you want independent coverage of the Delhi elections by News Laundry and the News Minute, then you can support us by becoming a paid News Laundry and News Minute subscriber. So pick up a joint subscription right away. Mr. Shah, I want to first ask you, because we're speaking in Bangalore and we're primarily a South-centric news portal, why should somebody, say, sitting in Vijayawada or Kochi or Bangalore, read your book?
The book that I've written, The Delhi Model, talks about the story of how a government in Delhi, over the span of a decade, has managed to achieve the benchmarks in governance, which very few or hardly any government in India since independence have achieved, and which are relevant in Vijayawada, in Mangaluru, or any part of India. And that is things like transforming our government schools. Can our government schools compete with the best private schools, consistently outperform private schools? Can children, even in middle classes, upper middle classes, expect to receive quality education in government schools? Can an average middle class person get quality and free healthcare from government services, from primary care to tertiary care? Can middle classes or average, even poor families across the country get 24/7 electricity and affordable electricity? Can they get good public transport services? So these are the matters that affect to the day-to-day quality of life of an average Indian. And somewhere we are seeing our politics and our governance completely divorced from these daily quality of life issues. The story of Delhi model is a story that tells that governments with political will and the right priorities can create drastic improvements in these matters. This is a factual account of how the AAP government in Delhi has actually delivered on many of these parameters over the last decade. And it also lays out a roadmap that if other states and if other political parties, if they are willing to, can also do this in their own states.
Now, in your book, you have compared the Delhi model to the Gujarat model. Why is that? Because somewhere it feels like it's the easy way out, right? Because Gujarat model, there have been holes punched in that quite a bit. Why could you not compare it to, say, a Dravidian model from Tamil Nadu or a Kerala model? Why did you choose this?
So, actually, it's a very small part of the book. Bulk of the book is not to sort of draw these comparisons. It's actually to give a factual record of what has really happened in Delhi in the last 10 years in 6 key sectors, education, health, transport, air pollution, electricity, and water, and defining the overall model. Now, the reason why I picked up on Gujarat model is because, the last time a pan-India audience heard about any model of governance is the Gujarat model. I mean, I would say the passion and the intensity with which it was propagated ahead of the 2014 elections when Mr. Modi was claiming, stake to the Prime Minister's chair, it was the Gujarat model. And I do not believe, yes, holes have been punched into Gujarat model, but if you look at the way mass media still talks about Gujarat model, if you talk about in popular imagination, people still think of Gujarat model as something which is fantastic. And I believe it has not been discussed enough and not discussed enough critically in a format that's more accessible to people. The other reason why Gujarat model is of relevance even today is that what we are actually seeing today, India going down the path, is the Gujarat model. And in brief, what is that path? It is a path where the government feels its primary obligation is to focus on GDP growth by giving huge tax cuts, incentives, loan waivers to the capitalists and the rich industrialists. And as a result, in India, in the last 10 years, we have given something like 15 lakh crores of loans have been written off. We have seen the largest corporate tax cut in Indian history. 1 lakh crores is the revenues Indian government is losing every year since these tax cuts were announced in 2019. And And where is this revenues coming from? Because the government is cutting down on expenditure on health and education. We were spending around 4% of our budget on education 10 years back. Today, we are spending 2.5%. In health, we were spending 2.6% of our budget 7 or 8 years back. Today, we are spending 1.9%. We are perhaps the only country in the world that has cut back its public health budget even after the COVID pandemic. But at the same time, we take a lot of pride in saying that, we are working towards being a developed nation. And this idea that India can reduce its expenditure, Indian governments don't have to spend on health and education, which is, by the way, the story of most state governments. Across states, the average expenditure on health and budgets are going down. And I think the Gujarat model is an exemplar of that approach. Over the last 3 decades in Gujarat has one of the worst health and social determinants and health and education determinants. Gujarat ranks 21st on the Human Development Index among states. Delhi ranks number one. And even while, yes, Indian economy has grown, we are the fifth largest economy, India's per capita income, which is what matters to the average ordinary person, has stagnated for the last 2 decades. In Gujarat especially, Gujarat ranks 19th out of 20th in terms of average wages. So I think Gujarat model needs to be challenged and more vigorously challenged, because for the last 10 years, the Gujarat model, along with Mr. Modi, the Gujarat model has also been scaled up to the rest of India. But when you challenge it, you also need to offer an alternative. And I argue in this book that the Delhi model of governance is the surest and, I would say, the most strongest alternative model or path of development that stands as an option today, because Delhi has shown that you can improve the quality of life of your people, but it is also a resilient economic model. Delhi today offers the highest minimum wages to its people. Delhi does great in health and education. Delhi has the lowest inflation among states, and Delhi has reasonably good economic growth. And that is why I believe it stands as an alternative against the Gujarat model.
I agree in principle that there has been disproportionate focus on GDP, and Gujarat model has many loopholes, amongst which health and education is one. For the sake of an argument, and I'm playing the devil's advocate here, isn't GDP also important? Because apart from the writing of loans, the fact is that when you have companies coming, and larger states do have that obligation of creating jobs, both public sector as well as private sector. Perhaps Delhi doesn't have that burden as much as, let's say, Bihar or Uttar Pradesh or Jharkhand. So isn't, in that sense, parts of what has been done in Gujarat of bringing companies to the state also important?
I am not saying that GDP growth is not important. What I am saying is that governments, by saying that my only obligation is GDP growth and divorcing themselves from everything else that matters to the day-to-day quality of life or well-being of its people. And we have shown, GDP growth obsession is not, by the way, an Indian concept or an Indian idea. This is what trickle-down theory is all about. And US has been following this for many decades, and we've seen inequality rise in US and in many parts of the world. My argument is that by focusing on the well-being of your people, and the Delhi model in brief is by actually prioritizing investment into human capital and providing quality services to all citizens, that also is a theory of economic growth. Why? Because it is the people. Unless your people of your country are prosperous, your country is not going to be prosperous in the long term. And unless you invest in their health and education, where are we going to become a developed nation? I believe a good way, by strengthening the your masses, investing in human capital, putting money into their pockets. Like in Delhi, we offer a lot of subsidies and transfers. Now, there is an economic theory behind this, because the moment you put money into the pocket of the Aam Aadmi, that generates demand in the economy. Unless there is demand in the economy, who's going to set up companies? Today we are going through a huge consumption crisis in India. Our GDP, by the way, after all these loans, our GDP numbers are not doing great. We are falling down. So it shows that I think it's an ideological position that the parties and governments come by saying that, okay, just do this. It is not a holistic model. And states are far better off creating human capital, making sure your population is skilled, well educated, there is demand in the economy, and working towards a market-friendly economy rather than a business-friendly economy. And what I mean by that, in business-friendly economies, you choose the winners, give them loads and loads of incentives. So there are 12,000 defaulters who got 15 lakh crore waived off. What about the other people who actually paid back their loan? Unka to nuksan ho gaya. Similarly, in this production-linked incentive scheme of the government of India, you pick the winners and you give them thousands and thousands of crores. What about the small and medium enterprises who are trying to compete? They're out of business. In a market-friendly approach, which we believe in, is that you create a level playing field for everyone. You remove unnecessary regulation that obstructs entrepreneurs and businesses from, this ease of doing business as we talk about. This entire threat of, raids and tax people, sitting on the head of business people. Those are the issues today that people, and if you speak to the business community, that is the real problem. Why do you have to put so many incentives in the for the industrialists? Because they are fighting all these issues on the ground. Even after investing, they know 100 regulations will come, some lawyer, some inspector will come, they'll demand money. The governments are better off focusing on those efforts, which does not take, by the way, a lot of money. And that sparse resources should actually go into investing into our people. That is the alternate that I talk about.
Okay. So there is a lot that Aam Aadmi Party's Delhi model has done, right? But have you looked at the welfare schemes in, say, Tamil Nadu or in Kerala? For example, the midday meal scheme, which has been in place for decades in Tamil Nadu, right? And as far as schools are concerned, Kerala has a high rate of enrollment in government schools, simply because of the quality of schools there. Have you closely looked at these two models, for example?
So, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, I think they have a long history of working towards, health and education reform for many decades. In this book, I have not critically reviewed it, also because of the scope of the book and the length of the book. I do believe, and for example, the midday meal scheme is very clearly something that Tamil Nadu came up with the idea and has scaled up nationally. There are many such reforms, and I would say not just Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Tamil Nadu came up with this activity-based learning model in education, which is also many states are adopting it. In this book, I have not reviewed it, but my argument is not that Delhi has figured it out all, right? There are many such examples of states coming up with individual innovations, which are great in itself. But where the Delhi model stands out in separate is that, consistently over the past decade, here's a state government that has made a mission out of transforming health, education, and other sectors. Like if you go in Kerala and talk about electricity, there's a lot of problem. There are high bills, the quality of electricity, employment.
It's not a fair comparison, though, because Delhi is a much smaller place. It's a city state. Kerala is a much larger state in that sense. So,
agreed. But I would say the nature of reforms that we've brought about in Delhi, there's no reason other states cannot do it, right? And I talk about in my book that Delhi is a very small microcosm of the country. But at the end of the day, if there is something right that is happening in Delhi, there should be no hesitation in saying other states and other countries, other cities should not be doing it. So your short answer is yes, I have not critically reviewed this, but I'm nowhere making the case that there's nothing worth happening anywhere else in the country. And for the sake of maintaining or keeping the scope of the book, the only model that I've compared it is the Gujarat model. But bulk of my effort is actually creating a factual record of what has happened in Delhi. I'm sure in future others, or maybe in a future edition of this book, I can draw comparisons with other state models.
You talk about trickle down and trickle up in your book. Can you explain that concept to our viewers, and why do you prefer one over the other? You prefer trickle up.
Yeah. So, the one thing that has been common post-liberalization in India between the two major national parties, BJP and Congress, is this theory of growth, that how will India grow, how will India develop? And both of them have believed in this trickle-down theory, which is largely focused on giving huge incentives, tax benefits, waivers, NPA write-offs to the rich companies, industrialists, because then they will set up more industries, they'll create jobs, and that prosperity will trickle down, drop by drop to the masses. Now, it's a wonderful theory, but the problem is there is plenty of evidence in India and abroad that it doesn't work. What we are seeing as a result of this is today, India is more unequal than it ever was, even more than under British rule. India has become more unequal than any of the G20 nations. So, and there's plenty of data and statistics I write in my book, but the summary of it is that over the last 3 decades, only the top 10% in India have prospered. If you see their income growing, and that's how the national economy has also grown. But if you look at the masses, they have stagnated. Their health indicators, their economic indicators have not really grown well. Our per capita income has stagnated. And on so many other parameters, it seems that India is not doing well off. There is a very interesting India Employment Report 2024 that was brought out by ILO, Indian International Labour Organization. It says that the average wages, inflation adjusted wages in India, have reduced by 1% in the last 10 years. So, yes, Indian economy has grown, but the average person is doing worse off. So, the trickle down theory has failed in improving the quality of life of the ordinary person. What is the antidote? What is the alternative? Is the approach that AAP is following in Delhi, and I believe a few others internationally. In India, I have not seen a similar example, which is bulk of the focus of the government should not be, or resources should not be spent on subsidizing stuff for the big industries. Bulk of the focus should be on human capital development. Focusing, having this almost a mission mode uh, approach of saying that I'm going to drastically improve the health and education outcomes for my population, give them better electricity, water, work on issues like pollution, transport, and at the same time provide them with ways in which they can, there can be some demand in the economy. So inflation is a huge thing for the lower and middle classes. Today, Delhi has the lowest inflation across India, and we give more subsidies in some sense than most other states. We give free electricity, free water, free bus rides for women, and that has actually helped create demand in the economy. So we call this as trickle up because, because there's demand, there will be investments that will come. People will set up enterprises, shops, trading. The economic activity will happen from there. And Delhi has shown that trickle up works because, and I do a comparison with, with pan India indicators, and it shows that Delhi is doing reasonably well on many of these fronts.
Practically, when a certain state gives subsidies to companies to come and invest, their capital subsidies, SOPs, they write off water charges, electricity, what have you. States like, say, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka are competing to bring those companies to their states. And this is something we studied. Gujarat gives benefits that others can't match because you have a combination of the two, union and state government. So is it practical to say that we will not give subsidies at all to companies? You lose investment, you lose jobs for your people. So can a more prudent model be a combination of the two? Because at the end of the day, the state needs cash flow as well, right?
So, see, this is where you're right. It's almost like a competition to the last, which is like every government is trying to cut money that they're spending on health and education and give it to the investor. And yes, if I'm an investor, why would I not want a bigger cut and a bigger, loan waiver and something like this? I believe in the interim, yes, you may have to give some loans and maybe some support. Let's say, what form and shape it can be differentiated. But a government that really wants to stimulate investment into its own state, I would say that there is such a huge margin to make it easier for businesses to operate, make it easier for entrepreneurs to operate, make it easier for small and medium enterprises. No, by cutting down regulation, the number of hoops, the number of approvals, the number of permission. We say that we've deregulated our economy after liberalization, but today there is huge license, Raj.
But isn't that also what Gujarat always spoke about, single window clearance?
So,
right? That's also problematic. That could translate into fewer checks and balances.
No, so it depends on where, right? So if you're saying that I'll remove checks and balances on environmental laws, then that's a problem. I'm not saying that, right? Many states do say single window. I believe there's a lot of it is marketing. They say everything is digital. You apply on a portal and then you get an email and say, no, come visit so-and-so person in so-and-so office. And it basically means that, you have to grease some palms. I believe most Indian states, and this is something which Raghuram Rajan also talks about, that if you are developing or improving the business climate of the Indian state, if you are actually offering really quality human capital, right? Then why will not global industries come and invest in India automatically? Today, because you have a handicap, you provide a terrible business climate. And I'm being real because it is what it is, the number of regulations you have to go through. By the way, today, one of the biggest fears in any successful business person in India is, when will ED and CBI or IT knock on my doors? That's the reality. Okay. So is that a ease of doing business? I mean, today, you know that. So point is, this raid raj is always there. And because you have these handicaps, you have to offer something to sweeten the deal. So rather than actually addressing this handicap, improving the overall market scenario, you have to say, chalo, wo sara to hai hi, but I'll give you something. So I believe it's not, in the short term, it may not be either or. But rather than focusing on saying, okay, which is the additional incentive I give to the corporates, focus on improving the business climate, eliminating raid raj. We take a lot of pride in Delhi, though Delhi is not an industrial state, but ours is a service economy. And we've literally ended, we do not have any raids happening on, the businesses in Delhi, unless there is a complete case and investigation at the end of it, rather than giving discretion to independent inspectors. Within your circle, you can go and raid anyone. So we brought down, I talked about the figures, before 2015, more than 150 raids were happening per month in Delhi. After we came to power, within 1 year, we reduced it to almost 0 or 1, So you can do that. You can provide better skill. You ask most of the companies today, where is the problem? They'll say, we don't find skill. I mean, this is amazing. India has an unemployment crisis, but you go to the industries and they say, we cannot find skilled manpower. Who is going to generate skilled manpower? If the states are not going to invest in education, you will never find that. So focus on human capital development, focus on creating a very easy to operate business environment, maybe provide some support so that you can compete with other state. And over time, you will actually see that you will not need to offer that, because your state has become a preferred destination for investments in.
Slightly disagree there, because many companies that we spoke to said that as far as talent is concerned, we prefer coming to a Tamil Nadu or a Karnataka. But that said, if somebody is giving me 50% subsidy in some other state, also arm twisting me on the side, I'm forced to go there. But that's a conversation for another time. I want to look at your education model. Now, one criticism that has come, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, not so much in the first term, is that many schools were merged, because of which the student-teacher ratio has gotten really skewed. So the outcomes are not what it looks great on paper, but the outcomes are getting impacted. How do you respond to this?
So I actually don't think that is true. I do not know where did this come up in your research, because in Delhi we have not merged any schools. We have expanded most of the states in India. You will see that the total number of government schools have come down. In fact, I remember there were 11 lakh government schools back in 2014. Today we have 10 lakh government schools. So 1 lakh government schools have come down. In Delhi, we started with, and I have the exact numbers in the book, 1,007 government schools, and we are today at 1,067 government schools. But more than that, now Delhi, we have a problem of getting more land for new schools. We wanted to build 500 schools. The central government did not allocate us land. So we went vertical. We built far more batches. We increased the number of students per government school by adding more classrooms. And here's the scale of investment we made in Delhi. In 2015, so cumulative governments in Delhi for the past 65 years had built 24,000 classrooms in government school. In the last 10 years, under the AAP government, we've added 22,000 additional classrooms. It's almost a 90% increase. So by the student to classroom ratio has fallen drastically in Delhi.
But I understand that it's still around 83.5, the ratio.
Absolutely
and
not.
Ideal is 37.
No, absolutely not. I would actually ask you to.
Okay,
check.
I'll share the data with you. But what is your ratio?
We are at around 40 to 45.
Okay.
We are at around 40 to 45, and the reason behind this is the kind of investment, as I just mentioned. So it is 110%, not 83. And I talk about that when we came to power, we had seen even up to 170 children stuffed into government classrooms in Delhi. Average was actually around 80 to 100. But because of this kind of expansion that we have seen, and we've had enrollment that has increased. It was 15 lakhs earlier, 2 lakh children have dropped out of private schools and joined government schools, because we are providing that kind of a climate and learning environment.
I want to take a look at your mohalla clinics, which have done very well. And in fact, some of the southern states had also visited. I think Telangana had, some officials had come to
Mr. Stalin had also come.
Yeah. But in 2023, apparently the footfall in the clinics had fallen by 28%. Is there a decrease in the number of people coming to mohalla clinics?
So I would say that there were short periods, and I'll give you an example of, see, one of the themes, and I've tried not to sanitize this out of the politics that AAP has faced, because one of the stories of the Delhi model is also about how this much progress has made despite the kind of constant opposition and obstacles that center has placed on our path. One of the ways in which they have done that is by controlling the bureaucracy in Delhi. For all these years, Delhi started having a semi-state government since 1993. And for 15 years before that, when Sheila Dikshit ji was the chief minister, she always had control over the bureaucracy. When AAP came to power, the bureaucracy's control was snatched by the center. So what that means is that the center can pressurize the bureaucracy to doing things that the elected government does not want. And as an example, in late 2022, early 23, there were 3 months for which they stopped paying the bureaucrats in Delhi government despite protest, and we made press conferences, public statements that the bureaucrats stopped paying salaries to doctors in Mohalla Clinic. They stopped making payments for the companies that were providing medicines to Mohalla Clinic. Right. So 3 months, I remember, were the worst period. We made an assembly session. We called an assembly session on that issue. So maybe for that period, it would have suffered. But I state data in the book of the last financial year, and we are seeing consistently around 2 crore outpatient visits in our 550 plus Mohalla clinics every year. So far, we have had total 7 crore patients who have visited Mohalla clinics in the last 10 years. And they are really the most vibrant primary healthcare system I believe any Indian state offers. Free medicines, more than 165 medicines are free, more than 90 tests are free, and you get consultation from a private MBBS doctor completely free of charge. They are one of the most popular primary healthcare innovations I would say India has seen. And momentary obstacles like these aside, I invite the News Minute. Come and see how the Mohalla clinics are functioning in Delhi. They are, I almost believe that they occupy a very important place for the local community, because for the first time, quality primary healthcare has become available at the doorstep of every citizen. So that's the reality.
So, an Indian Express report that I was reading, since I have not visited,
Yes.
full disclaimer there. So, they say that, the doctors who were quoted anonymously, of course, in that report, they say that in the last 1 or 2 years, the medicine supply has really come down. So, they don't have access to as many medicines, number one. Second complaint they have is, since these allegations of corruption have started, of course, the state government is being extra careful. So there is burden on the staff to put the input of all the data first on a tab, and then the paperwork. So the kind of paperwork they're expected to do has increased, and this doesn't allow them enough time to focus on the patients. How do you address these two concerns?
So on the number one thing, as I said, I had myself said that there was an issue of medicines, but I can tell you for now, right? And we are talking in Jan 2025. The medicines availability in Mohalla clinics is very high. And I mean that I said there are around 165 essential medicines. And because I'm also part of the government, we do have access to almost daily reporting that happens on the status of availability. I can confidently say that today it is upwards of 90%. There's always maybe 5-10% medicines that are stocked out for short periods of time, supply demand issue. But by and large, Mohalla clinics are really functioning. They are functioning well. Now, on the second question, that because the Mohalla clinics are functioning so well, because they are very popular. By the way, in the book, I also cite many independent studies, many researchers. I would say Mohalla clinics, ever since the WHO has praised it. We've had 2 United Nations Secretary Generals, Ban Ki-moon and Kofi Annan, visit it and talk highly about it. Many independent researchers have been studying it. And consistently, all studies show that the patient satisfaction, they've directly surveyed patients, is upwards of 90%. They never had something like this earlier, and they appreciate it. So for now, I would believe that yes, maybe because your question, to answering your question on increased paper requirement, because they have been so popular, it has always been attacked by the BJP and the center. Sometimes it is by pressurizing the bureaucracy. I remember 6 months back, they said they suspended some key companies that were providing again medicines to hospitals and mohalla clinics, saying that, oh, there's a big scam. Almost every week in Delhi there is a new scam being alleged onto the AAP government. Why? Because CBI, ED, police are all controlled by BJP. And that does put an obstacle, because the moment to any bureaucrat you say that your department there's a big scam, they start going slow. They increase paperwork. So I would say that it is, I do not know if there is an immediate solution to it. Uh, we ensure that at the end of the day, at least the patients don't have to suffer. Patients should get, the people of Delhi should not suffer because of all this. We can probably make it easier procedurally to make sure that people don't have, the doctors or the attendants in the mohalla clinics have to not to spend so much time, automate some of the requirement. But if something is required administratively because of, let's say, concerns of transparency, I think it's the job of the government to generate that data and information.
Many times I've heard many Aam Aadmi Party leaders say that our ideologies are our work in the education sector.
We call it
in the
Kaam Ki Rajniti.
Kaam Ki Rajniti, which for our southern audience means that
Politics
of work, right? But in today's India, and I don't think it ever was possible, you cannot divorce this, the ideological conversations. So where is AAP on, let's say, Hindutva? Because there are opposition parties that have taken a clear stand on it, some others that have not taken. What is Aam Aadmi Party's stand on Hindutva?
See, first and foremost, we have always said, and I think let me elaborate on what is this politics of work, and I'll come to the Hindutva question as well. We say that why our ideology is politics of work is because, I believe the traditional political parties are very comfortable having ideological debates forever without talking about anything that will impact the day-to-day life of an ordinary person. I believe all these debates are also created because you want to take the focus away from what is the government's main job. When I'm electing a government, what do I want? I want them to do something for my life, right? Perennially engaging in ideological debates actually takes the focus away. So I do believe that. On Hindutva, I believe it is essentially see, there is a big role for religion and spirituality in Indian society. We are an inherent spiritual or a religious country. And therefore, all religions should be given the freedom to practice their religions. Now, making religion a political plank is what the attempt behind the entire Hindutva was, right? And which is what BJP takes pride in today. You see this during the Delhi elections. When the Delhi elections happen, or in most elections where BJP fiercely competes, they would want the entire conversation to be around communal and religious issues. And Hindutva is therefore coined as a plank to draw people into that discussion, right? We would say that let all communities, be it Hindus, be it Sikhs, be it Muslims, be it Christian, leave the religions to them. Yes, as politicians, we are also religious. We will practice our religion. If Arvind Kejriwal has to go to a temple, he believes he is a practicing Hindu, he will do that. But using that as a basis to garner votes, to divide society, that is something that neither AAP has done in the past, nor will we ever do. When we go to campaign, when we go set our manifestos, when we go ask for votes, we will say that vote for us because we'll improve our schools, we'll improve your the healthcare system, electricity, water, issues that concern the day-to-day life of people.
But when you say how will something impact my life, yes, health, education is important. That can be taken care of by municipalities also, right? Now a citizen might also ask you, okay, fine, you don't have the police, Delhi police is not under you. That said, can I not expect my chief minister, my elected representatives, to also stand up for me, for my rights as a Muslim, as a Dalit, if I'm being attacked by one party, one government, for, stand up for my right to protest, stand up for my other rights in the country? That is somewhere the Aam Aadmi Party has again and again failed. And I quote the Shaheen Bagh example. So isn't that also something that impacts your voters' lives?
No, so I don't think we have stepped back. Yes, the role of the government, apart from providing, by the way, states have a huge role to play in education, health, and delivery of many
Sure
of these
thing.
public
I'm
services.
not denying. Yeah.
Yes, but the role of the state is also to safeguard the constitutional rights, right? I mean, the Bible for any government or political party should be the Constitution of India. And if those constitutionally guaranteed rights are being trampled upon, it is the job of governments and political parties to stand up. Now, on the issue of Shaheen Bagh, and let me be very clear, when the Shaheen Bagh protest was going on, and we were asked, right? We have always said that any community should have the right to protest. We have never said that there should be no right to protest. The point was the issue of Shaheen Bagh was sought to be made as the main electoral plank for the Delhi 2020 elections. Let us not forget what Amit Shah said, as the almost the narrative for for BJP, saying that button itna zor se dabao कि current Shaheen Bagh tak lage, right? Which is basically his. So here's,
But
I mean,
that's
Delhi
their
election.
politics. What's
No,
Aam Aadmi Party's politics?
no, our politics is that in the center of Delhi elections, yes, you would say that AAP did not get involved into the Shaheen Bagh conversation or debate. And our point was that this was a few weeks ahead of Delhi election. Here's what the BJP, which is classic being BJP, they did not want any conversation to happen on what we were talking about, which is health, education, the work we had done in improving the lives of people. They wanted to make the entire Delhi elections 2020 a conversation on Shaheen Bagh, and we refused to fall into that trap.
But the answer to dehumanizing Muslims or any section of the society cannot be that we will build school. In that conversation, you have to address that, right? Because whether the Aam Aadmi Party is talking about it or not, because a large section of the media also reflects it, it's important to make your stand. Will you stand with every section, especially the marginalized communities? That point has to be addressed. To that question, you cannot say, we will improve health, we will
No, we are not
improve
saying that.
education.
We are not saying that. I'm giving you, because see, many of these questions need to be are important from the context in which when these issues happen. You asked Shaheen Bagh, and I told you why AAP chose not to wade into that debate, because that was a diversionary tactic. Have we not been vocal about issues of marginalized sections of the society? I would thoroughly disagree. And
Rohingyas. Your
so
government went after, I mean, when they were trying to dehumanize Muslims again, you said, but they're Rohingyas, they're human beings too. So
no. So again, you have to understand. See, it's very, I would say, nice to talk about issues in isolation. But Rohingya is classic what happened at Shaheen Bagh. Here we are 2 or 3 weeks ahead of Delhi elections. BJP, by the way, for the last 5 years, everybody knows, that the national security is in the hand of BJP. Everybody knows law and order in Delhi comes under the hand of BJP. For the last 10 years, BJP never spoke about Rohingyas. 1 month before Delhi elections, they want to attack Aam Aadmi Party and say that you have brought Rohingyas and settled them in Delhi. And we gave it back to them. We have a right to defense. And we said that, actually look up Hardeep Puri's social media post on Twitter in August 2022, where he said that it is under Modi government's policy that we have brought hundreds of Rohingya families and we have settled them in Bakarwala, which is an outer area of Delhi. And we are giving them round-the-clock security. So when BJP leveled these allegations, we said, no, it is not us. Your minister is saying it is BJP that has settled them, and now you're using them to attack Aam Aadmi Party. Point is this, right? I mean, at the end of the day, as a political party, it is very important to be able to set the narrative. BJP takes pride in setting the narrative around these issues. As Aam Aadmi Party, we feel the narrative, and it has taken a lot of effort for us to bring the narrative in Indian politics to health and education. We can trivialize it and saying, oh, that is only as important.
No one's trivializing it. I'm saying
it happens because it's because there's an opportunity cost to talking about these issues, because the entire media will then only talk about those issues.
But they're doing that anyway.
Not necessarily.
You sidestepping the issue is not really changing their narrative.
No, so in the Rohingya issue, it's not. We didn't stay quiet. We responded and we said it is the BJP, in fact, that needs to answer. How did, if at all, you're saying Rohingyas have entered Delhi and a lot of them are probably voting, then how did they enter Delhi? They didn't come via rocket or by a plane. They've crossed the national border, so BJP was sleeping there. They crossed so many states between, let's say Bangladesh border and Delhi. Many of them have BJP governments. Delhi's law and order is under BJP. So why if BJP is claiming, which Hardeep Puri has also agreed, that there are Rohingya, let's say some hundreds of families, then what is BJP doing? They should be going after them. But at the same time, and if you look at the Delhi elections, we are the only party which is still talking about health. We announced the Sanjeevani Yojana, for senior citizens. We talked about Mahila Samman Yojana, free cash transfers. But BJP's entire narrative seems to be around Rohingyas, around these kinds of divisive issues.
There's a scheme called Sanatana Seva Samiti that was announced. And under this, I think priests, Hindu priests, and
No, it's called Pujari Granthi Samman Yojana.
so why are imams or Christian priests not included in this scheme?
No, so imams and maulanas already get some support through the Waqf board. Okay,
And the
traditionally.
salaries were delayed, and that was something the BJP
No.
took up against the Aam Aadmi Party.
So it's very interesting. Today for the first time, we are seeing in Indian politics that BJP was protesting, saying, why are imams and maulanas not getting their salaries? So it's interesting. I'm glad Aam Aadmi Party has forced BJP to talk about the issues of maulanas. Uh, there were some administrative issues. It's not that the party or the government wanted it, but I believe it's been sorted. And they have, for a few months it was delayed and it is being received. So yes, one community had, and obviously there is a history behind Waqf Act and Waqf Board, that their imams were getting some salaries or some compensation. I would say it's a small stipend or something for many years. But the other religions were not getting. And it is a reality. At the end of the day, what the religious heads, or I would say these are people who have devoted their lives to religion, they are also in need for some social security. It's not a salary. It's barely, I think, 18,000 rupees. So some kind of a social security net that allows them to also live comfortably. So we announced it for these religions. We are not against any other religion. I think it also depends on the demand of the community. If the community does want, if there's any religion that does believe that state support will help its community, Aam Aadmi Party is more than happy. So there are three religions, the three biggest religions in Delhi are having some kind of scheme towards them. If there are other religions that need them, AAP is completely open towards that.
I want to end with, again, a political question. So probably what helped Arvind Kejriwal beat anti-incumbency the last time around was a certain image that he had. One, that he's a common man. He's one of the people. Second is the anti-corruption plank. The last few years, BJP has systematically attacked both of these perceptions, right? One is this entire, palace and the golden commode and carpet or whatever, the entertainment that we see on news channels. That's one aspect of it. The second aspect is, of course, so many of your leaders having been accused of corruption, even being jailed for it. Do you think these two things will really go against you and will make it difficult for you to beat anti-incumbency?
So, see, we have an abiding faith that politics of work cannot be ignored, right? Despite, and I'll answer on both these issues, but for us, it is just, I think it tells you, that if you start talking about work, the traditional parties are going to try hard to bring you away from that conversation. Today, if the conversation is, let's look at the quality of schools in Gujarat versus Delhi, there's no conversation there. Let's look at many of these improvements that Delhi government has done on these basic issues that people care about. There's no conversation there. And therefore, there is this attempt to constantly character assassinate Aam Aadmi Party and raise these questions. I believe because the people of Delhi have seen transformation, there are 18 lakh children who study in our government schools. You can't brainwash them saying that this government has done no good for you. They've seen that transformation. There are 2 crore patients who visit our Mohalla clinic and avail of free healthcare. You can't brainwash them. Yes, they'll try and, put seeds of doubt within them. And I believe from time to time, we have to address those questions. So number one was this point of exorbitant expenditure on the CM official residence. Now, this is the first time that the CM of Delhi built an official residence. Almost all, if you look at governments in India and the national government, they have functioning residence of their primary head of the state. So that had to be built. It's a complex. There are offices. There are conference room. So that was built for the first time. The BJP started, the way they started twisting this narrative is by claiming things which were never there. They said golden ki seat hai, golden toilets are there. They said there's a swimming pool. A few days back, we challenged, and by the way, while they're saying all this, the Prime Minister's residence, which always was there in Delhi, this was built ground up. The first brick and foundation was laid and some amount was spent there. The Prime Minister's residence was always there. It's not that India did not have Prime Ministers before. But here's the Modi government that has spent 2,700 crores on renovating it. We challenged that, we invited the media that, all these falsehoods are being spread. Let's go visit the CM residence at 6 Flagship Road, and let's find out where are these golden toilet seats and where are these Kaleen and where is this swimming pool. Mind you, the BJP put Delhi police on the gates and did not allow us to go with the media and investigate. That shows that these are nothing falsehoods. This is a attempt to take the focus and attention away from substantive issues. On the matter of corruption, here's the big change that India has seen. We've always believed in the dictum that you are innocent until you're proven guilty. Aam
But
Aadmi
that's
Party.
not how, unfortunately, public perception works. And
It doesn't.
elections are all about perception.
I agree. But I think there is a closure that has happened in the last 2 years. 2 years back, people felt that, oh, if somebody is jailed, then there's something wrong. But people are now understanding, and I think there's a role of media also, that slowly people are getting educated, that we have entered into a new India. We have entered into an Amrit Kal, so to say, where if BJP levies an allegation, a person can be jailed. There is no trial, there is no conviction. In each and every case of Aam Aadmi Party leader being jailed, there was no trial, there was no conviction. They were jailed because BJP leveled allegation, and they leveled allegation under a law, the PMLA Act, which has become so draconian, and that is also thanks to amendments made by the Modi government, that you can level allegation against your political opponent and you can put them in jail. Now, obviously, many of these leaders have chosen to join BJP and everything has been squashed. The thing with Aam Aadmi Party is that we did not compromise with our honesty, and therefore our leaders paid the price for it. Eventually, after 2 years, in cases of like Satyendra Jain and Manish Sisodia, it was close to 2 years they were in jail. The BJP has given, the courts and the Supreme Court has given bail to all of them. In the case of Mr. Kejriwal, they even called ED and CBI as a caged parrot. They said that this looks like a politically conspiracy more than a fair investigation. So people today know that all of this was nothing but a conspiracy. It was a conspiracy to finish off break the Aam Aadmi Party. And we've seen many parties have broken because of these pressure tactics. But today that cases have gone cold. There is no investigation. And I want to tell your viewers, in each of these cases where AAP leaders are jailed, the investigation is not even completed. The trial has not even started. For 20 years, there is going to be no verdict. BJP's entire attempt was, as you said, to tarnish the perception. But I do believe that the Indian voter is smart, Indian voter is educated. They know that this was nothing but a political vendetta. They wanted to finish off AAP. Unfortunately, we are still alive. And people of Delhi know that we are dedicated towards working towards the betterment of their life.
On that note, thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for your time. And all the best. We will continue tracking the campaign in Delhi.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.